Can trade prevent wars? It was a big question of the last century. Would countries that buy from each other attack each other? The assumption was no, they won't. But today the situation has changed. If you can't wage wars, you can wage trade wars. You can hurt the economy instead. Could India and China descend to that level? Could there be a trade war between India and China? And here's why I ask. India is investigating multiple Chinese exports, like tempered glass, glass mirrors, vacuum flasks, and drawer slides. At least 32 types of products are on India's radar. And what is this investigation about? Dumping. Say glass mirrors cost $5 in China, but China is exporting them at $4. So the export price is lower than the market price, and this is called dumping. Why do countries do it? To flood and dominate foreign markets, they dump goods. I mean, who doesn't like cheaper goods? So India is on the lookout for Chinese dumping. In some cases, there has been action, like on Chinese industrial lasers. India has imposed anti-dumping duties on them. The idea is to level out the playing field to make sure that local businesses do not suffer. And has China retaliated? Well, yes and no. They are investigating 2 Indian exports, but just 2 compared to India's 32 probes. So the official reaction from China has been measured. No emotional outbursts, no endless rants or complaints. Beijing is surprisingly composed. The question is why? It could be because the allegations are true. Maybe China is, in fact, dumping goods in India. Or maybe Beijing is worried about an escalation, an eventual trade war with India. It's a risky prospect for them. Just look at the India-China trade numbers. They're stacked in China's favor. India's deficit is around $51 billion, meaning we buy more than we sell. And that difference is $51 billion. It's the same with most nations. If you look at India's top 10 trading partners, we have a deficit with 9, whether it's Russia, Iraq, South Korea, or the UAE. India buys more than it sells. It has a trade deficit. The only exception is the United States of America. So we have a $51 billion deficit with China. Obviously, this benefits the Chinese. The status quo brings them a lot of money. So ideally, Beijing would like to keep it that way. No trade war, no investigations. But what about India? Can India afford to start a trade war with China? Well, it will be painful. India-China trade is worth more than $130 billion. It includes a lot of finished goods like mobile phones, smartwatches, televisions. And their USP is the unbeatable prices. Looks like Indian consumers like it. A recent poll surveyed 7,000 Indians. 55% of them had bought a Chinese product in 2023. More than half of them. They may have issues with China, but the price is too attractive. And that's the big problem. A trade war hurts consumers more than governments. So what is the solution? Well, India has opted for a targeted approach. It includes 3 steps. One is a digital wall. More than 200 Chinese apps are banned in India. Some of them are crowd favorites like PUBG and TikTok. India has banned them. Step number 2 is limiting investments. Since 2020, India has rejected 58 Chinese FDI proposals. 14 others are on hold. Now, FDI is foreign direct investment. Normally, countries welcome such proposals, but coming from China, it's like kryptonite. And among those rejected was BYD, an electric car maker in China. BYD wanted to invest $1 billion in India. They wanted to make cars in India, but New Delhi rejected that proposal. And finally, step number 3, scrutinizing Chinese operations. Dozens of Chinese firms are being probed for irregularities. Oppo is accused of evading taxes worth $550 million. Vivo is accused of money laundering. 2 of their employees were arrested last week in India, so it's not business as usual. At the same time, it's not a trade war yet. In the long term, such a strategy will not be enough. India and China are engaged in a border standoff. There are thousands of troops on both sides, plus Beijing's attitude is quite clear. There is place for only one Asian superpower. That's what China believes. And keeping that in mind, you can't just keep buying from China. Although it's not just an India problem. Most Chinese neighbors face the same issue. Look at Japan, South Korea, Vietnam. Their largest trading partner is China. At the same time, their biggest national security threat is also China. So what is the way out? Western nations are talking about de-risking. about taking supply chains outside China, and India is part of one such project, the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity. Now, New Delhi is not officially de-risking from China, but the plan looks to be the same. Attract more foreign investment, build a strong industrial base, and finally replace Chinese imports with locally made ones. The problem is, this will take time. Supply chains cannot be built in months. Investments often take decades to deliver. So patience is key, unless, of course, Xi Jinping decides to change his ways. But let's face it, a decades-long, painful economic recalibration looks more likely. It tells you everything you need to know about China's attitude.